I'm Olivia Bennett, but everyone calls me Liv or Livy. Nobody ever called me the star. That spotlight was always Ava's, my sister, 7 years older. We grew up in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, in a house like a museum dedicated to Ava. Honor roll certificates, ballet recital photos, volleyball trophies, all gleaming under the lights. I was just a faint shadow, wearing her old dresses, playing with her discarded toys, and learning to stay quiet so I wouldn't disturb. But that day at LaGuardia Airport, New York, I did something no one expected. I stood at the check-in counter, clutching a ticket to Bora Bora, not Cancun, where my family was lining up, expecting me to babysit Liam and Lucas, my twin nephews. I sent a text to my mom. I'm not going with you, I'm choosing myself. I turned off my phone, heart pounding like it might burst, but for the first time, I felt like I could truly breathe. They'll call me a traitor, the one who wrecked their grand vacation, where mom and dad, Diane and Thomas, were secretly planning to announce Ava's engagement to Ethan. They'll say I'm selfish, that I don't love my family, that I don't care about the twins I watched every week. But they didn't see the years I lived for them. I heard Ava laughing with her friends, saying I was only good for standing in the background at her wedding. I saw my parents sell stocks to buy Ava a house in Hoboken while I scraped by for college tuition. I remember the Cape Cod trip when Liam and Lucas trashed my laptop full of assignments, and Ava publicly blamed me in front of neighbors, like I was the one who ruined everything. I tried, I really did, but at some point I asked myself, what about me? Where's my life? When I sent that text, I knew I'd burned every bridge. My phone overflowed with voicemails, mom screaming, Ava sobbing, but I didn't turn back. Bora Bora was my choice, the first time I put myself first. Was I wrong to ditch them? Or was this the moment I reclaimed myself? If you've ever felt invisible in your own life, this story might be yours too. Ava was the star, and I, Olivia Bennett, was just the shadow. Everyone calls me Liv or Livy, but nobody ever called me the center of attention. That glow was all Ava's, my sister, 7 years older. We grew up in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, in a narrow townhouse with big sunlit windows and an iron fence my mom, Diane, repainted every spring. My dad, Thomas, was a bank clerk, always buried in paperwork. Mom was a seamstress, tailoring wedding dresses for Manhattan brides. It sounds ordinary, but that house wasn't mine. It was Ava's museum. Her ballet recital photos, volleyball trophies, honor roll certificates, all gleaming under the lights. Me? If you looked hard, you might spot a blurry picture of me, tucked behind Ava in her hand-me-down dress, frayed at the shoulders. I got used to living quietly. My clothes were Ava's cast-offs, too big or faded. My toys were what she'd tired of, a doll with missing hair, a puzzle with lost pieces. I didn't complain, honest. Growing up in a house where every glance went to someone else, you learn to stay silent, to avoid a fuss. Ava was the center of the universe. She was smart, beautiful, volleyball team captain, class valedictorian, always surrounded by friends. My parents never missed her games. They clapped the loudest, bragged to neighbors about their perfect daughter. I did okay in school, but no one noticed. I loved theater, joined the school drama club, dreamed of standing on stage. But my first lead role performance, my parents didn't show. They were busy at Ava's regional volleyball match. I stood under the stage lights, scanning the audience for them, finding only empty seats. I didn't cry then, but that night I tore up the script, vowing not to hope again. I didn't resent Ava. She was kind to me in her way, sharing candy, telling school stories, helping with homework. But her kindness just reminded me I was the little sister, forever reliant on her shine. My parents loved me, I knew that. But their love came with strings. I had to stand back, wait my turn, put Ava first. I kept it all inside, smiling through a cracking heart. But deep down, a quiet restlessness simmered. I used to think it was normal that every younger sister felt this way. But looking in the mirror, seeing a dim girl in a worn dress, I knew something was wrong. A small flame was burning in me, and though I didn't yet know where it would lead, I felt its heat waiting to blaze. Ava shone like a queen, and I, Liv Bennett, was just the handmaid. I sat at the corner of the table in an upscale Manhattan restaurant where my parents had thrown Ava's 24th birthday party. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, their light reflecting off the Hudson River outside the windows. I sipped water, trying not to intrude, while the family, Dad, Thomas, Mom, Diane, and Ava, laughed heartily around the table. Ava, in a sleek emerald silk dress, stood and tapped her wine glass, her voice brimming with excitement. "Mom, Dad, Liv, I'm getting married. Ethan proposed last night." Mom burst into tears. Dad shot up to hug Ava, shouting, "My girl, that's amazing!" The whole restaurant clapped, as if Ava had just won an Oscar. I sat there, clapping along, forcing a smile, but a weight pressed on my chest. I was happy for Ava, truly, but that familiar sense of invisibility surged. I felt like a decoration at someone else's celebration. "Liv, you'll be a bridesmaid, right?" Ava turned to me, eyes gleaming. I nodded, mumbling, "Of course, sis." But my voice was so soft, I doubted anyone heard. Mom had already pulled Ava into another embrace, and Dad started talking venues. I stared at my salad, wondering if anyone noticed I was still there. But worse came later when I overheard Ava on the phone in a corner. "Liv?" "Oh, she's always ready to play the backdrop," she laughed, her voice light but cutting like a knife. I froze, gripping my glass, feeling like I'd been slapped. Weeks later, I caught my parents whispering in our Williamsburg kitchen. "We'll need a big loan, Diane," Dad said, voice strained. "But it's Ava's big day. The plaza's perfect." Mom sighed. "I know, she's our daughter." I wanted to storm in, scream that this was insane, that they were sinking us into debt for one day. But I stayed silent, as always. My opinion never mattered. They settled on the plaza, a place so lavish its name alone screamed extravagance. I knew they were struggling. Dad worked overtime, Mom took on extra wedding dresses to alter. But for Ava, they'd do anything. The wedding day arrived, and Ava looked like a fairy tale princess. The ballroom dazzled with white roses and twinkling crystal lights. My parents stood front and center, eyes shining with pride, snapping endless photos. I was a bridesmaid, in a pale lavender dress Mom picked, standing in line, feeling like a ghost. I tried to blend in, toasting the couple, but no one asked what I thought. Midway through the reception, I slipped away to a corner, watching everyone dance. No one noticed I'd gone. I wondered if anyone would care if I vanished entirely. That wedding wasn't just a day, it was a stark reminder that Ava was the sun, and I was just a dim backdrop. My parents poured their money, their hearts, into her, leaving me scraps of attention. I kept it all inside, smiling through the ache, but Ava's words, "always ready to play the backdrop," echoed. A spark of defiance burned in me. I didn't know where it would lead, but I knew I couldn't stay invisible forever. Ava gave up everything, and I had nothing. I, Liv Bennett, sat in the Williamsburg, Brooklyn kitchen, listening as my sister Ava dropped a bombshell at Sunday dinner. Mom, Dad, Liv, she said, her smile radiant. I'm quitting my job at the finance firm. I'm going to be a stay-at-home wife. Ethan makes enough for both of us, so I want to focus on family. I nearly dropped my soup spoon. A housewife? Ava, who bragged about her manager title, now wanted to scrub floors and make soup? Mom, Diane, glanced at Dad, Thomas, and they both forced stiff smiles. That's wonderful, honey, Mom said, but her eyes betrayed worry. Dad nodded. If that's what you want, Ava. I wanted to scream. They'd just taken out a massive loan for Ava's wedding, and now she was ditching her career. But no one said anything, just hollow congratulations. I bit my lip, pushing a piece of bread around my plate, trying to stay silent like always. But weeks later, Ava dropped an even bigger bomb. She was pregnant, with twins, Liam and Lucas. My parents went wild with joy. Twins! Dad kept repeating, shaking his head in awe. Mom hugged Ava, tears streaming, calling it a family miracle. But that miracle came at a steep cost. One night, I overheard them whispering in the living room. We have to help Ava and Ethan buy a house, Mom said, her voice firm. The twins need space. There's a nice place in Hoboken. Dad sighed. Diane, we just sold stocks to cover the wedding debt. Another loan now? Mom replied, She's our daughter, Thomas. I couldn't believe it. They were ready to plunge the family deeper into debt for Ava's dream house. Worse, Ava called me afterward, her voice sweet but sharp. Liv, you'll chip in for the housewarming, right? Family helps each other out. I was stunned. Chip in? Me, the younger sister scraping by for college tuition, was supposed to contribute to Ava's house? I wanted to yell into the phone, but I mumbled, I'll see. Wow, so I didn't see anything. I was done standing in the background. This time I couldn't stay quiet. I marched into the living room, heart pounding. Mom, Dad, seriously, I said, my voice shaking but resolute. You just borrowed for Ava's wedding, now you're buying her a house? And you're asking me to chip in? That's insane. They stared, startled as if they'd forgotten I was there. Mom frowned. Liv, this is what families do. Ava needs a home for the kids. Dad added, You don't understand responsibility, Liv. Responsibility? I wanted to scream that I had dreams too, that I deserved to be seen. I stormed back to my room, slamming the door, my chest tight like it was being crushed. I wasn't mad at Ava, she was just living her life. But I was furious at my parents, at how they put her above everything, at myself for staying silent so long. I looked in the mirror, seeing a tired, invisible girl, and wondered when I'd live for myself. That anger, like a small flame, was now burning brighter. I knew it would blaze, and when it did, no one could put it out. Ava had everything, and I had only debt. I, Liv Bennett, 18 and fresh out of high school, sat in my Williamsburg, Brooklyn room, flipping through college brochures, dreaming of the day my parents would see me. Ava and Ethan had moved into their new Hoboken house, and my parents, Diane and Thomas, couldn't stop raving about the twin miracle on the way, Liam and Lucas. Meanwhile, I scoured for a college I could afford. I thought this was my chance to shine, to step out from Ava's shadow. I was so wrong. One evening, I gathered my courage and walked into the living room, where Mom was fawning over Ava's wedding photos for the millionth time. Mom, Dad, I said, voice trembling. I want to study communications, but tuition's steep. Can you help me? Mom looked up, her eyes drifting like she was thinking of Liam and Lucas. Dad cleared his throat, giving that familiar look, the one that signaled bad news. Live, sweetheart, Mom said, her tone sweet but icy. We'd love to help, but with the wedding loan and the Hoboken house down payment, we can only cover half your tuition. You'll have to manage the rest. Dad nodded. You're smart, Liv. You'll figure it out. I stood frozen, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. Half? After everything they did for Ava, the plaza wedding, the new house, I got half? I nodded, muttered thanks, and retreated to my room. The door shut, I slid to the floor, back against the wall, and cried. Not loud wails, but silent, scalding tears, as if every disappointment poured out at once. I wanted to scream, why not me? Why am I always the one to sacrifice? But I knew arguing was pointless. In the end, I chose Kingsborough Community College, not my dream, but the only place I could afford. With my parents' meager help and a student loan, I barely covered tuition. But rent, books, food, I landed a waitressing job at a pizza joint in Coney Island, a few blocks from campus. Every day, I rushed from class to work, tied on an apron, carried steaming pizza trays, and smiled at customers despite aching feet. Those first college months were a nightmare. I studied, worked, slept, and repeated, with no time for friends. Some nights, I stumbled into my rundown apartment at midnight, collapsing onto the bed, staring at the peeling ceiling, wondering if I could keep going. Worse, Ava visited once, glanced at my textbooks, and smirked. Kingsborough? I thought you'd aim for a fancier school. I clenched my jaw, wanting to yell that I didn't have parents bankrolling me like she did, but I stayed quiet. Her jab cut deep, but it also fueled me. Every extra shift, every finished assignment, I told myself I was building my own future. Every call home, Mom only asked about Ava and the twins. Once I tried sharing about a presentation I aced, but she cut me off. Oh, Liv, Ava just got a double stroller. It's adorable. I hung up, feeling erased. But I didn't quit. I had no parents backing me, no one cheering me on, but I had myself, and I started to believe that might just be enough. Ava got to rest while I became a nanny. I, Liv Bennett, was used to standing in Ava's shadow, but I never expected to become an unpaid babysitter for Liam and Lucas, my 4-year-old twin nephews. They were born to the family's overwhelming joy in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. My parents, Diane and Thomas, practically moved to Hoboken to cuddle the boys, snapping photos of every yawn, every grin. Ava and Ethan, their parents, flaunted them online like they'd birthed 2 angels. I loved Liam and Lucas, honest. Their big round eyes, their infectious giggles melted me. But loving them didn't mean I wanted to sacrifice my life chasing 2 tiny whirlwinds, especially while juggling college and work. It started one Friday night when I dragged myself into my rundown Coney Island apartment after an exhausting waitressing shift. My feet throbbed, my head spun with an unfinished communications presentation. All I craved was a shower and bed. But when I opened the door, there was Ava on my couch, Liam and Lucas tearing around, screaming, spilling water on the floor. Liv, thank God you're here, Ava chirped, purse already slung over her shoulder. I'm late for a party with friends. You'll watch Liam and Lucas, right? Ethan and I need to unwind. Before I could speak, she blew kisses at the twins and vanished, leaving me stunned, keys still in hand. I stared at Liam and Lucas, muttering, Seriously? I wasn't a nanny, but Ava acted like it was my job. Mom made it worse. When I called to vent, she said, Liv, Ava's worn out. Raising 2 kids isn't easy. This is what families do. Family? I wanted to scream that I had assignments, shifts, and no life of my own. But Mom didn't listen, and Dad just said, You've got to help your sister. It became routine. Every weekend, Ava swooped in, dumped Liam and Lucas, and dashed off to parties, spas, or me time. Once, she stayed 10 minutes, whining about her exhaustion, then bolted. I scrambled to stop the twins from scribbling on walls, mopped up spilled milk, and soothed their ear-splitting fights. The breaking point came when Liam and Lucas wrecked my laptop. I'd left it on the table, open to a crucial presentation, but in one unguarded moment, Lucas dumped orange juice on the keyboard and Liam mashed the keys. The screen died, my work vanished. I called Ava, voice shaking. "Sis, my laptop's ruined, my assignment's gone." She just laughed. "Oh, Liv, kids will be kids. Be more careful next time." I was floored, wanting to yell that I wasn't their mom. I exploded at Mom over the phone. "I'm done. I've got school, work. I can't babysit forever." She sighed. "Liv, don't be selfish. Ava needs you." I hung up, hands trembling, feeling crushed. That night, I sat on my apartment floor, staring at the broken laptop, hair a mess, eyes shadowed. I loved Liam and Lucas, but I wasn't responsible for them. I loved my family, but I needed to live. The anger in me, that smoldering flame, now roared. I knew I couldn't go on like this. Something had to change, and this time, I wouldn't stay silent. My vacation vanished when my family showed up. I, Liv Bennett, was worn out from racing through assignments at Kingsborough Community College, waitressing shifts in Coney Island, and reluctant weekends babysitting Liam and Lucas, Ava's 4-year-old twins. I needed a break, a place to breathe, to remember I wasn't just an unpaid nanny. So, I scraped together tip money to book a cheap Airbnb in Provincetown, Cape Cod, dreaming of days on the sand, listening to waves, free from screams and schoolwork. When I told my parents, I was shocked they supported me. "Good for you, Liv," Dad Thomas said, patting my shoulder. "You deserve a rest," Mom Diane smiled. I thought for once they saw me. I was wrong. The day I left, I was practically skipping. I stuffed clothes into a backpack, hopped on a bus out of Brooklyn, and with every mile from New York, I felt lighter. In Provincetown, I inhaled the salty sea air. My Airbnb was small, worn, but had a balcony overlooking the ocean. I kicked off my shoes, ran to the beach, letting waves lap at my feet. I ate a lobster roll at a seaside shack, savoring each bite, feeling like I was living, not just surviving. I pictured a quiet evening, reading, listening to the breeze with no interruptions. But when I returned to the cottage that afternoon, familiar laughter hit me. My heart sank. In the front yard, next to my Airbnb, were Mom, Ava, Liam, and Lucas, racing around like twin tornadoes. "Surprise, Liv!" Mom cheered, arms wide like she'd handed me a grand gift. "We couldn't let you vacation alone!" Ava grinned, pointing to the house next door. Bigger, fancier, clearly twice the price of mine. Before I could react, Ava nudged Liam and Lucas toward me. "The boys want the beach. Watch them, okay? I need a walk, and Mom's grabbing supplies." They vanished, leaving me frozen, holding hands with two rambunctious kids, my head spinning. My vacation turned into a disaster. Liam and Lucas stormed my Airbnb, yanking down curtains, knocking over a table lamp, scrawling crayon on the walls. I chased them, yelling, trying to stop the chaos, but it was futile. I had to pay to fix the lamp, scrub the walls, my savings draining fast. The worst came when Ava returned, not thanking me but loudly scolding me in the yard in front of neighbors. "Liv, you've got to keep the kids under control," she said, as if I were a failed nanny. I stood there, humiliated, wanting to scream that this was my vacation, not theirs. but I bit my tongue, doing what they expected, as always. By the weekend's end, I was more exhausted than before. On the bus back to Brooklyn, watching Cape Cod's coast fade, resentment blazed inside me. Ava had her house, her parents, her perfect life, and me. I had invisibility. I knew I couldn't go on like this. Something had to break, and this time I'd be the one to shatter it. My family pushed me past my limit, and I shattered. I, Liv Bennett, returned to Brooklyn from the Cape Cod vacation disaster, seething with resentment. The endless waitressing shifts in Coney Island, classes at Kingsborough Community College, and unwilling weekends babysitting Liam and Lucas had drained me dry. But Ava's public scolding in front of neighbors, as if I were a failed nanny, torched my last shred of patience. My run-down apartment was no longer a refuge. I knew I had to change, to break free from my invisible role in the family, no matter the cost. Confronting my parents and Ava wasn't easy, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. It all exploded one Saturday night when I trudged home from work, pizza grease still clinging to my hair. I was peeling off my apron, craving sleep, when the door burst open. Mom, Diane, stormed in, face flushed with rage, followed by Dad, Thomas, with that familiar disappointed glare. "Liv, what were you thinking in Cape Cod?" Mom yelled, her voice sharp as a blade. "You abandoned us, leaving Ava to handle the kids alone. Do you know how hard that was?" I stood stunned. I abandoned them? Me, who paid to fix the lamp, scrubbed crayon off walls, while they ruined my getaway? "That was my vacation," I shouted back, voice trembling but firm. "I didn't invite you. I just wanted a few days for myself." Mom cut me off, pointing. "Don't be selfish, Liv. Family helps each other. Ava's exhausted." Dad chimed in. "You're so ungrateful. After all we've done, this is how you repay us?" It felt like a slap. All they've done? Like paying half my tuition while pouring a fortune into Ava? The worst came when Mom blurted, "We were going to use your savings to help Ava with the house, but you act like this." I went numb. My savings? The money I scraped from extra shifts? They planned to take for Ava? "What about me?" I screamed, tears spilling. "When do you ever think of me? I work myself dead, study until I'm spent, babysit until I have no life. I'm not Ava's slave." Mom froze, Dad's face reddened, but they didn't stop. "If you're this selfish, don't expect us to keep paying tuition," Dad snapped. I stared at them, the people who should have loved me unconditionally, and saw strangers. "Fine," I said, voice ice cold. "I'd rather scrape by than live like this." I stuffed clothes into a suitcase, ignoring Mom's cries of "family traitor." I dragged it to the door, not looking back, though my heart twisted as she shouted, "Leave and don't come back." I called Sophie, a classmate, and she let me crash on her Bushwick couch. The days after were a blur. I picked up extra shifts, hunted for cheap housing, and finally rented a creaky-floored, cramped kitchen apartment with Sophie in Bushwick. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. For the first time I felt freedom, despite money worries and loneliness. Lying on a thin mattress, I smiled. I'd escaped Ava's shadow. I chose myself, and though the road ahead was tough, I knew I'd never go back. I broke free from my family and found myself. I, Liv Bennett, left the Williamsburg, Brooklyn house, carrying resentment and a suitcase of worn clothes. The fight with my parents, Diane and Thomas, over their plan to take my savings for Ava burned every bridge. I was no longer the silent girl, the unpaid nanny for Liam and Lucas, or the shadow under Ava's glow. But freedom came at a cost. Those first days crashing on Sophie's Bushwick couch, I worried about money, tuition, and whether I had the strength to keep going. But I chose myself, and I wasn't turning back. The apartment I shared with Sophie in Bushwick was tiny, with creaky floors and a kitchen so cramped 2 people could barely stand in it. But when I hung my painting, A Boat on the Sea, on the wall, I smiled. This was my home, not Ava's. College at Kingsborough Community College remained a grind. Without my parents' support, I leaned on student loans and tips from the Coney Island pizza joint. I studied until I was spent, worked until I dropped, some nights getting just 3 hours of sleep. But every high grade, every presentation nailed, showed me I was building a future. On graduation day, I walked across the stage, a foolish hope flickering that mom or dad might be in the stands. Empty seats stared back. I swallowed my tears, clutched my communications degree, and told myself, "Liv, you did it." After graduating, I sent resumes everywhere, and luck struck. A Manhattan ad agency called me for an interview. In a cheap navy dress, I pitched a campaign idea, trying not to shake. They hired me, and a week later I had a desk and a name badge reading Olivia Bennet. The pay was enough to rent a small apartment in Astoria with a window overlooking a bustling street. I bought a real bed, no more thin mattress on the floor, and felt like I'd conquered the world. Last month, I won an internal award for a creative campaign, standing before colleagues, heart pounding with pride. But that night, Mom called, her voice falsely sweet. "Liv, Ava needs you to watch Liam and Lucas this weekend. Can you come back?" I took a deep breath and said, "No, Mom, I have my own life." I hung up, smiling, knowing I'd changed. For the first time, I was living, not just surviving. I joined an Astoria art class, my paintings now covering my walls. I dated, not seriously, but enough to laugh and feel young. I jogged along the East River at dawn, music in my ears, and made new friends. My family was still out there, but our contact was limited to awkward calls, laced with their resentment. They were mad I left, for betraying them. I didn't argue, just quietly hung up. My apartment, my job, those morning runs, they were my new life. Looking in the mirror, I saw a strong Liv, no longer invisible. I had no idea a bigger challenge was waiting just before my 27th birthday. My family pushed me again, and I chose Bora Bora. I, Liv Bennett, had built a new life in Astoria, New York, with my advertising job in Manhattan, art classes, and morning jogs along the East River. But my family, Mom, Diane, Dad, Thomas, Sister Ava, and the shadow of family duty, still lingered. A week before my 27th birthday, Mom called, her voice syrupy sweet. "Liv, we're throwing a big birthday party for you," she said. "The whole family's coming." I was skeptical, but went to their Williamsburg house. Stepping inside, I saw Ava, Ethan, Liam, Lucas, aunts, uncles, all clapping, shouting, "Happy birthday, Liv!" I smiled, accepted hugs, but braced for the shock. The shock came when Mom handed me an envelope, eyes twinkling. "A gift from us all," she said. I opened it, my heart sinking, a plane ticket to a Cancun, Mexico resort. "A family vacation," Dad declared, beaming with pride. "Liam and Lucas will love the beach," Ava chimed in. "The kids need their Aunt Liv." I saw it instantly. Not a gift, but a week of babysitting so Ava and Ethan could unwind. Mom squeezed my hand, whispering, "Don't make a scene in front of everyone." I nodded, thanked them, but my mind was already elsewhere. Cape Cod had been a costly lesson. I wouldn't let them ruin this too. I secretly bought a ticket to Bora Bora, using savings from an advertising award. On departure day, I arrived at LaGuardia Airport, dragging my suitcase through the chaotic crowd. Ava and Ethan were busy with Liam and Lucas. Mom rambled about Cancun, and no one asked what I wanted. They assumed I'd fall in line. As the family queued for check-in, I faked a stomachache. "I need the bathroom. Go ahead and check in," I said. They nodded, distracted by luggage and the boys shouting. I turned, heart pounding, and strode to another counter, handing over my passport and Bora Bora ticket. I boarded the plane, feeling like I'd stepped into a new life. Settling into my seat, I turned on my phone briefly. It exploded with texts and voicemails. Mom screamed, "Liv, where are you? You've ruined everything!" Ava live-streamed from Cancun, publicly calling me irresponsible, saying I made Liam and Lucas cry. I switched it off, sipped coconut water, and watched clouds drift past the window. A twinge of guilt flickered, but freedom drowned it out. In Bora Bora, I sprawled on white sand, turquoise waves lapping at my feet. I surfed, dined under stars, laughed with strangers at a bar. No assignments, no shifts, no screams. Just living for myself. As the plane touched down in Bora Bora, I knew I'd burned every bridge. Ava's live-stream tears, my parents' accusations of selfishness. I didn't care anymore. I chose myself, feeling truly alive for the first time. Consequences awaited in New York, but I was ready. I wouldn't return to that old shadow, where I was just a nanny, a backdrop. Bora Bora was a beginning, and I wasn't stopping. My family's accusations built a wall I stood behind. I, Liv Bennett, returned from Bora Bora, skin sun-kissed, spirit unburdened after ditching their Cancun trip at LaGuardia Airport. I'd chosen myself, refusing to babysit Liam and Lucas, stepping out from Ava's shadow. My small Astoria, New York apartment was a haven, but I knew my family, Mom, Diane, Dad, Thomas, and Sister Ava, wouldn't let it go. I'd barely hauled my suitcase inside, not even sitting down, when the doorbell buzzed frantically. Opening it, I faced Mom, face flushed with fury, and Ava, eyes swollen from crying. They barged in, uninvited, and Mom shouted, "Liv, you ruined everything. Do you know how hard it was for Ava in Cancun? You owe us for that ticket." Ava cut in, voice trembling. "You don't love Liam and Lucas at all, do you? You're so selfish, Liv." I stood in my apartment, absorbing their barrage of blame. They called me ungrateful, said I'd shattered family spirit, demanded I pay for a ticket I never used. Ava even threatened, "Keep this up, and you won't see Liam and Lucas again." I was stunned. Bar me from my nephews? After all the times I watched them, sacrificing my time, my laptop, my sleep? Part of me wanted to apologize, to smooth things over, but I wasn't that old Liv, the girl who bowed and took it. I took a deep breath, met Mom in Ava's eyes, and said, voice calm but sharp, "Enough. I owe no one. Not money, not time, not childcare. I'm an adult, living my own life." Mom's jaw dropped. Ava froze, but I wasn't done. "My whole life I've stood behind Ava, doing what you all wanted. I'm exhausted. If you can't respect me, we have nothing to talk about. Ava, I love Liam and Lucas, but you don't get to use them to control me. When you're ready to treat me as an equal, call." I opened the door, standing tall, heart racing but head high. Mom yelled, "You're betraying the family!" Ava sobbed, "You're awful." They muttered accusations as they left. The door shut. I leaned against the wall, exhaling. It wasn't easy, but I felt powerful for the first time. After that day, I guarded my peace. I moved to a new apartment in Long Island City, keeping my address from them. The small place, with wide windows overlooking the East River, was where I painted, jogged, lived freely. I threw myself into my advertising job, earning my boss's praise, and took art classes, my canvases now bursting with color. Every night, returning to my quiet apartment, I smiled. No screams from Liam and Lucas, no demands from Ava, no guilt trips from my parents. Just Liv, true to herself. My family might never change, but I have. I don't know if we'll reconcile, but I know I did right. I chose myself, not out of selfishness, but because I deserve to live, to be loved, to be seen. Looking at New York's twinkling lights outside my window, I knew I'd never return to that old shadow. I'm ready for whatever lies ahead, with clear boundaries and a free heart. A letter softened my heart. I, Liv Bennett, had built walls after ditching the family's Cancun trip for Bora Bora, choosing myself over babysitting Liam and Lucas. Life in Long Island City, New York, was now my private paradise. A small apartment with wide windows, my advertising job in Manhattan, vibrant paintings filling my walls. My family, Mom, Diane, Dad, Thomas, and Sister Ava, was reduced to brief, reproachful calls. I thought that door was shut, but one afternoon, brewing coffee in my kitchen, I found an unfamiliar envelope in my mailbox, scrawled with childish handwriting. My heart tightened as I opened it. "Dear Aunt Liv," the letter read, "we miss you. Can you come play? We drew our family here." Signed Liam and Lucas, with a crayon sketch, me standing beside Ava, Ethan, and them, all smiling brightly. I sank into a chair, rereading it, tears rolling down. I missed Liam's infectious giggles, how Lucas clung to my legs, calling Aunt Liv. Ava likely prompted the letter, but the kid's handwriting and drawing melted me. I wanted to keep my boundaries, but craved a connection with my nephews, not as a nanny, but as Aunt Liv. I emailed Ava, cautious. "Sis, I'll visit Hoboken, but as their aunt, not a babysitter. If I'm pushed, I'm leaving." On the visit, I arrived at Ava's Hoboken house, carrying 2 superhero books for Liam and Lucas. The home buzzed with toys, the scent of fresh cookies wafting from the kitchen. Ava opened the door, hugging me tightly, eyes red. "Liv, thank you," she said, voice catching. "I was wrong to lean on you so much." Mom and Dad were there, offering awkward smiles, avoiding talk of Cancun or Ava's critical live stream. Liam and Lucas rushed over, wrapping me in hugs, shouting, "Aunt Liv, look at our drawing!" I played with them, building Lego castles, laughing as Lucas zoomed around as a flying superhero. Ava and Ethan busied themselves in the kitchen, but never once dumped the twins on me. Mom shared stories about new clients. Dad asked about my job. Simple questions, but for the first time, I felt heard. As I left, Ava held my hand, whispering, "I'll try, Liv. I want to be a better sister." I nodded, making no promises, but a flicker of hope stirred. I'm not naive. Ava might slip back into old habits, my parents might not change. But Liam and Lucas's letter reminded me family isn't always a burden. I can love them, but on my terms, with clear boundaries. Back in my apartment, I opened the window, letting New York's breeze sweep through, and smiled. I was still Liv, free and strong, but now I knew I could open my heart when the moment was right. I inspired others, igniting their light. I, Liv Bennett, once an invisible shadow in my Williamsburg, Brooklyn family, now stood firm in Long Island City, New York, with my advertising career, vibrant paintings, and clear boundaries with my parents, Diane and Thomas, and sister Ava. A letter from Liam and Lucas opened a fragile reconciliation, but I knew my journey, from reluctant babysitting, the Cape Cod vacation disaster, to my defiant flight to Bora Bora, wasn't just about saving myself. One day, painting in my apartment, I received an email from the Astoria Community Center inviting me to share my story at a women's support group. Me, the girl who cried in a rundown apartment? But I agreed, wanting to help someone like I once needed help. I started the support group at the center with just a few folding chairs and a coffee pot. I laid it all bare, from years in Ava's shadow, to my parents planning to take my savings for her, to the moment I texted, "I'm choosing myself," at LaGuardia Airport. "I didn't betray my family," I said, voice trembling but steady. "I chose myself because I deserve to live, not just exist." The women listened, some wiping tears. After the first session, a 22-year-old named Mia approached, voice choking. She lived with an oppressive family in Queens, forced to skip college to care for siblings, like I once watched Liam and Lucas. "Your story makes me want to change," she said. I held her hand, seeing my younger self in her. I led the group weekly, sharing how to set boundaries, find jobs, chase dreams. Mia became a regular. She got a part-time job, moved in with a friend, and returned to school. "Liv, I couldn't have done it without you," she said, eyes shining. The group grew from a handful to dozens. One day, I was invited to a local podcast, New York Women. I shared my story from Ava's stinging Cancun live stream to building my new life. After it aired, emails flooded in from strangers, saying I gave them courage to say no to family pressure. Leaving the podcast studio, I stepped onto New York streets, cool breeze brushing past. I never imagined my tear-soaked, angry story could touch so many. I'm no famous speaker, just Liv, the once invisible girl, now guiding others to their light. Mia, the women in the group, they're proof that choosing yourself doesn't just change your life, it sparks flames in others. Back in my apartment, I opened the window, Manhattan's twinkling lights filling the room. I smiled, knowing I'd come far, not just for me, but for those seeking their way out of the dark, as I once did. My journey teaches you to choose yourself. I, Liv Bennett, was once an invisible shadow in our Williamsburg, Brooklyn home, living to please my sister Ava, my parents Diane and Thomas, and to watch Liam and Lucas. Those years waitressing in Coney Island, scraping by for tuition at Kingsborough Community College, and babysitting until I was spent made me think I'd be trapped forever. The shattered Cape Cod getaway, my defiant flight to Bora Bora instead of Cancun, and the moments I faced my family to set boundaries changed me. From leading a women's support group in Astoria to speaking on a podcast, I learned lessons I want you to carry, you who's listening to this story. The first lesson, don't let family or anyone define you. I thought I had to sacrifice everything for Ava, my time, my savings, to uphold family duty. But I realized loving family doesn't mean erasing yourself. If you're pressured to watch siblings, do chores, or abandon dreams to keep others happy, pause, ask, who am I living for? Saying no doesn't make you selfish. It's how you love yourself. Mia, from my support group, was forced by her Queens family to skip college to care for siblings, like I did with Liam and Lucas. She said no, moved out, and now studies nursing. You can start that way too. The second lesson, freedom costs, but it's worth every penny. Leaving home, losing my parents' support, I was terrified. Nights on Sophie's couch, grueling shifts. They were tough. But they led to my Long Island City apartment, my advertising job, my colorful paintings. Freedom puts you in the driver's seat. Mia paid a price leaving her family, working part-time, but now she lives true to herself. Want college, a new career, or just one day for you? Embrace the struggle. The reward is a life you choose. What can you do today? Start small. Say no to an unfair demand. Write down your goal, a class, a new job. Find friends, like Sophie was for me, or a support group like Mia found in me to share with. Liam and Lucas's letter, the Astoria group, Mia's nursing path, they remind me choosing yourself doesn't just save you, it inspires others. When you dare to live true, you spark flames in others. Tonight I stand by my window, New York's lights twinkling, asking, Liv, how are you living? The answer is fully. What about you? Ask yourself today, what do I want? Then take a step, even a small one, toward freedom. I believe you can, like I did, like Mia did.